All right, we're bringing in a good friend of ours. We go way back with him. He's an FS1 NBA analyst. Our good friend, Ric Bucher. Rick, what's happening?
Fellas, how are we?
We're great, man. We're great. Good to have you on the show. I wish we could start off at least talking about basketball.
But we can't.
But yeah, there's other stuff going on, as you were well aware.
What's going on?
Right.
Tom Brady's in decline? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we've hit that already.
Singing that tune.
You already know that. Come on. You know that, Rick. I'm banging that drum.
What is Rob and I, Rick, we said this actually before the congressmen and lawmakers said the NBA should suspend activities in China, for the time being, that we thought the league should have just left, when they start tearing down the banners and, the way they've treated the Rockets and
the media.
All the sponsors pulling out, the media can't talk and say anything, that the NBA should have just left. I know that's radical because you might be jeopardizing a lot of money, but what's your take on the situation at this point?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they were going to take issue with Hong Kong or any political issues, then they should have made that decision before they ever went over there. And they should have pulled up at that point. Once they were over there, the banners and pulling sponsors, I get that. When they started setting the terms of you can't have media,
yes,
you can't have your normal media availability, that's where I think that they needed to say, hey, look, we're going to do it the way we've always done it,
right,
or we're not going to do it. Like, that to me is where you draw the line. The sponsors and we're not going to televise and all of that. I get that, but there's still a protocol that you have when you put on the actual games. And that's where I feel they should have said, hey, look, we're either going to do it this way or we're just not going to play the game.
And Rick,
and they didn't.
And Rick, they sell out the media. People who cover the team, people who went over there. Do you know? Like the league should not have done that and say, no, these are our people who came here to cover. This is not what they signed up for. This is not what we do. Even the PR person who stopped the woman from CNN. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I get that, because the issue at that point was you're in a battle, you're in a negotiation now, an open negotiation with China. And the value that the NBA has, the thing that the Chinese do not have, that they value the most and that has the most, the greatest asset that the NBA has, is the talent, is the status and the celebrity of Russell Westbrook and James Harden and LeBron James. So it's really not. It's not that the question wasn't a legitimate question or that the question couldn't be answered, but it was, we're not putting James Harden or Russell Westbrook or LeBron James or any of our assets, we're not putting them in a position to damage their value on the Chinese market right now.
But Rick,
it wasn't that the question wasn't good. It was that we're just not gonna allow our guys to answer those questions at this stage, because they're the most valuable asset we have in this abrupt negotiation that we're going through with the Chinese.
Well, but Rick, my only thing is you can't tell the reporters what questions they can and cannot ask. Players can say, I'd rather not comment on that at that time. But,
sure.
but do you know what I mean? Like, but you can't dictate, okay, we're having a press conference, but you can't ask A, B, and C. There's no press conference.
Well, but this is where we discovered how unbuttoned the NBA is, because it certainly would have been easy enough for the NBA to say to its players, look,
right,
if you're asked these questions, this is how we want them addressed.
Just say, right, exactly.
And clearly they didn't have that preparation. They didn't, they obviously never had a conversation with Daryl Morey or anybody else, and I guarantee you at this stage they will. But they're in crisis mode now. They're playing catch up for something that, I'll be honest, and I've said it, like, I'm actually surprised that they haven't had an issue like this come up with, say, Mikhail Prokhorov owning the Brooklyn Nets and all of the subterfuge and the conflict that we have with Russia at this stage, or just the amount of interaction that the NBA has in other countries that don't operate the way that we do. And it's not going to go back. I mean, if they indeed want to delve into and build a market in India and continue to do things in Africa, we're going to run up against issues in other countries and the way they operate that's different from us. And once they become business partners with us, now we become culpable for the way they operate. And that's where all of this went sideways. And I'm sorry for those who are saying that the NBA is now being hypocritical. My view is, are you banging that out on a smartphone or a computer? Because that was made in China. What are you wearing? What are you wearing on your feet? Chances are it was made in China. So all of us in the U.S. right now, we've all benefited from this business relationship that we have with China. And I don't know how many people have been out there saying, hey, you know what? We really can't be buying these shoes, can't be wearing these clothes, can't be using these iPhones because they were made in China. And you see what's going on in Hong Kong, or you see what happened in Tiananmen Square. So I get where the NBA was caught out. They were they're a business that was not prepared for this sudden turn of events, or having an employee speak out the way Daryl did. But look, we're intertwined. Whether we like it or not, we can stand here as Americans and say, well, we believe in freedom and we believe in all these things. Yeah. You know what? We also believe in all the manufactured goods that make our life nice that are manufactured in China. If you didn't have a problem with it then, I don't want to hear about how you got a problem with it now.
Do you think there's any way that the NBA, that things don't get back to business as usual with China and the NBA? Like, say, in a month, do you think this thing will all but be forgotten and it'll just be business as usual?
Chris, there's too much money to be made on both sides of the equation. They'll figure out a way. I don't see any way in which China wants to give up the NBA and what its value is. And certainly I don't see the NBA closing its door on China. I honestly, are there going to be is there going to be a little downturn? I don't know how much of a downturn there's going to be as far as attendance or any of that when it comes to the NBA. I mean, there's going to be some money lost in the short term. But I kind of put this in the same camp as whatever impact Colin Kaepernick had on the NFL. You could probably attribute some things to it in the short term. Last I checked, the NFL is more robust than ever, and the Colin Kaepernick thing was never resolved.
Well, what about the when you talk about the players and even coaches, Pop and Steve Kerr? They were very vocal and they talked about different issues. And here, all of a sudden they didn't understand what was going on. And I think the NBA comes across as, and Chris and I talk about this all the time, that they're woke and they're all into social things, and we're not going to North Carolina, no All-Star game because you're doing the bathroom bill, and and all those kind of things, which all sound good, and that you're conscious of other things other than just making money in basketball. Sure. But then in this case here, it just seemed like they all of a sudden wilted up and nobody had anything to say. And I think that the issue here with Hong Kong or whatever, to me, is more simplistic than the issue that we have at home. Because you're just talking about whether what Daryl Morey was talking about was democracy. We all know what democracy is. I don't know if people say they don't know what's going on, that the people in Hong Kong want democracy or they want to be free. That's what this country's built on.
Well, sure, but it's not. It's ignoring the history of China, and I know this from having written the book, and I don't consider myself an expert by any means, but having spent time in China, having had long conversations with Yao and doing a book with him, having talked to other people over there, this is both what I discovered being in China a half dozen times over the last 10, 15 years, as well as going to East Germany before the wall actually came down and talking to people over there, is that in this case, we look at it and see the people in Hong Kong fighting for democracy. The people on mainland China, and I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about the people in mainland China, look at Hong Kong and say, Well, that was our territory. That was our country, and Great Britain stole it from us, or took it from us 100 years ago. And those aren't people in Hong Kong. Those are Chinese. Those are people that we are bringing back to the motherland, and the way we conduct life. Not that they're some separate entity. And so we look at. I mean, this was the greatest discovery that I got, both being in East Germany and being in the People's Republic of China. Like, we as Americans think that our way of life, democracy, and the way we live is the greatest thing on earth. And not everybody sees our society through the same prism. Do they want the things that we have? Absolutely. But they also look at our society and the things that we hold, the things that we value, and they question our principles. They question our way of life as being soiled in a variety of ways. I was told this when it was the East Germans. When the wall comes down, people in East Germany are going to run over to the West. They're going to buy all the things that they can't get in the East, and they're going to go back to the East because they didn't see the wall as holding them in. They saw the wall as holding us out so that our way of life wouldn't poison their principles. And you can say people are indoctrinated that way. You can say they're brainwashed that way from birth. I'm not going to debate that. But the idea that they don't truly believe that they don't believe that, hey, our way of life, there are some certain things about that are a plus. And does everybody in the world want to live in the United States? Yes, they do, because they want to live in the United States because of what we have, not necessarily how we live.
Rick, do you know Steve Kerr? I mean, we both covered him for many years, and you were up in that area.
I am sometimes mistaken for Steve Kerr.
Are you really?
I can see that. I can see that. But do you look again? You know him. I find it hard to believe that he doesn't know hardly anything about China because how intelligent he is.
Right.
And
when that answer was his first answer.
International family. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, there's no way he doesn't know. What's your take on this?
If I do believe that if the NBA hadn't put a I don't know if it's a gag order of said, hey, let's not comment for right now. If they hadn't said that, if the word hadn't gone out on that, I'm sure that Steve would have imparted an opinion on it. If there wasn't this crisis involved, I would think the same with Pop and maybe some others when it comes to Hong Kong. But because they've seen what's happened, not just in terms of the reaction with Daryl, because look, we're all, everybody talks about freedom of speech. Daryl's he's still free to tweet if he wants. He's still free to talk about Hong Kong if he wants.
You don't believe that, do you? I don't believe that, Rick. I don't believe that.
Wait a minute.
He would get fired.
Okay.
He might lose his job.
No, right. Okay, that's what I mean, though. But
But that's not.
But no. But he's free to say whatever he wants. We're all free to say whatever we want. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have consequences as a result.
No, I get that, but I'm saying after what went on and the way the league responded, the league responded so poorly that Silver had to come out with the second
but how much do you think,
press release.
Honestly, Rob, how much do you feel like the second time around was because it didn't land well with people?
That was totally because he got ripped on both sides.
Right.
Okay, but the way I look at it, for people to say that he didn't, I mean, Daryl didn't have to take it back. He didn't have to take it back. He deleted it himself.
Well, he got a call though.
Oh, I'm sure he got. I'm sure he
That's
got
why
a call. There's no doubt that there was a conversation, but was it? Did they fire him? Did they suspend him?
But they couldn't fire him.
Let me ask you this:
the firestorm would have been horrific for the NBA.
I talked to somebody, Rick. I talked to
firestorm. It may have been a firestorm, but he cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. In what business do you cost your employer hundreds of millions of dollars and don't risk the possibility of losing your job?
Well, hold on, Rick. Don't you? I talked to an agent, and he doesn't have any inside information, but he's convinced that Maury, they wanted to fire Maury. And you remember there was this story that came out in the Ringer that said his job's in jeopardy, and then all of a sudden he was safe. The agent felt like, and it makes sense, that Maury, they were going to fire Maury, or they wanted to fire him. But then the response from the American politicians on both sides of the aisle was so strong that it was like, if we fire him, it'll look bad. And so that's the only reason he still got a job.
I totally agree with that.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. So we talk about America and we talk about democracy. You guys are talking about the Romans and the Christians, man. I mean, the Christians and the lions. You're talking about going back in the day where the emperor looks at the crowd and looks for a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Right.
That's basically that's where we are now.
Right.
Is that everybody is crowdsourcing what principles we're going to follow. Right. It's all
they're looking on Twitter.
Yes, but true. And so, I mean, but is that the principles of America, or is that politics? Is that determining which way the wind's blowing, and that's going to determine our action? Well, I think there's certain truth to that. I think
that's a long discussion, because I think the reason Kaepernick's not in the NFL
absolutely
is that, right?
The same exact.
Because when Trump got involved, it shifted everything. I mean, you're right. Now a lot of decisions, unfortunately, are made based on, what way the wind is blowing on Twitter or social media or what have you.
Hey, Rick, I'm glad that you could come on and talk with us. Seriously.
Yeah, good stuff.
You've been really good stuff and brought some other insight in your time in China, and I appreciate that, Rick, a lot. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Always.
All right, man. I'll say this. I think that there's hypocrisy all around when it comes to this issue. And I say that because I applaud and I agree with the congressmen and lawmakers who said, sent the letter to the NBA that you should suspend all activity in China until they deal correctly with the Houston Rockets and the league in general. But at the same time, I'm saying, hold up. You can't just call out the NBA, because American businesses and corporations are bending over backwards to appease China.
Because of the people and the potential money. Let's throw out the number, Chris, in case somebody's listening.
We're gonna give it out, but we're gonna say something. I'm gonna say something.
Okay.
We had Marriott last year, as I said, fired an employee because he liked the tweet about Tibet. They fired him and apologized. Did the lawmakers say anything to Marriott? Tiffany and Company, they pulled an ad because China found it offensive, because it was used a symbol that was similar to the Hong Kong protesters, and they apologized. Did the lawmakers, did the congressmen say anything to them? And I just read a story on CNN. Here's the headline. CNN, Trump promised U.S. silence on Hong Kong democracy protests as trade talks stalled. So Donald Trump, the president, has promised that we would keep silent on Hong Kong's fight for democracy while we're involved in trade talks.
Which is horrendous.
So this is far beyond the NBA. And a lot of the people, and you and I have been critical of the NBA, and we stand by that.
Absolutely. We're not backpedaling at all.
Right. But a lot of the people criticizing the NBA, they are not criticizing the other people, and they're just looking for an opportunity to go at the NBA because they don't like the I Can't Breathe T-shirts, and they don't like, the guys that have criticized Trump. And you and I have said, look, I'm not giving you points for saying something about Donald Trump at this day and time. That's the easiest thing to do in America.
Easiest thing in the world.
Right. You get applauded.
Exactly.
Okay?
You get elevated in society. You get elevated.
Right. But I'm just saying, a lot of the people criticizing these players, they are the same people that wanted them to just shut up and dribble 6 months ago.
Right. And basically, and the guy called up we had yesterday, Chris, I can't remember his name, but saying basically that's what China has done to the NBA in this case.
No doubt.
Shut up and dribble. We don't want to hear what you have to say. You came over here to play ball, and that's all we want to hear from you. That's it.
That's exactly what they've done.
And they wouldn't accept it in the United States, but that's what you got in China. And I get all of it. The sneakers, all the other stuff, Chris, and the money, and, you don't want to rub people the wrong way, and how they going to make our sneakers, and it's going to cost me money and all that. But everything's not about money.
No, and look, and Rick made a point. Look, we all are using Chinese-made things and wearing them and stuff. But average citizens are different than people who are on the world stage.
Thank you.
Whom much is given, much is required. All right? It's just as simple as that. And when I thought long and hard about this, Rob, and I said it yesterday, I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to add something to it after talking to a former coach in the league today. As an African-American, it shouldn't be this way, but sometimes when you can put it in a perspective that's closer to home, you understand it better. I think I am more sensitive to issues about women now that I have daughters.
Absolutely. That would make sense. That totally makes sense. And not that I'm not sensitive to it because I don't have any daughters. I have sisters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I do, but once you have your own daughters, I do. You understand how it is, and you want them to have every opportunity that other people have, right? And you want them to be treated right and not be run over and treated ill. I get it. It touches home.
Yeah, and look, I said it yesterday. If there was a country that 200 years ago or 70 years ago said, America, I'm not dealing with you because of the way you treat your black citizens, I would applaud that country. I would be thankful for that country. And somebody brought to my attention today, apartheid in South Africa. U.S. companies divested from apartheid. So all this, we can't tell another country what to do.
Yes.
Well, we've done it in the past, and sometimes it needs to be done.
That's the point. And people don't want to hear that, Chris. And I think we brought it up earlier. I was talking to somebody about that. Even all the entertainers, remember Sun City in South Africa?
Right.
They refused to play there. All of the big stars who used to play there realized we can't go down there anymore, and they stopped it.
Right.
Because they were like, what are we doing?
And South Africa had it going on economically at that time. They might not have been quite as big as China now, but they were huge. They were big economically. So that's what, I just wanted to say that about it. I mean, it's a complicated issue, but there's a lot of hypocrisy going all the way around, including the NBA. 877-90 down on Fox. Your turn to weigh in on the NBA China controversy.
All right, we got a couple people. Let's start out with Jaime in Bakersfield on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. Jaime, what you got?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Great show.
Thank you.
You guys made a good point about hypocrisy. I think our NBA also is hypocrite too, because players like LeBron James had. You guys said it yesterday. He could have said something. He could have stood up. He could have took it that further. For that step, because they'll listen to LeBron. They don't listen to guys like me. They listen to people like LeBron. And he did not do that. Our players did not step up and say or stand up and put their foot down. And I just think that's hypocrite from our NBA.
All right,
I'm not going to kill LeBron for not saying anything because, like I said, so many of these corporations, and as we just read, the president isn't saying anything. But I said he missed an opportunity. He said he wanted to be like Muhammad Ali. That would have put him on Ali's stature.
No
if
doubt,
he had really
no doubt.
come out with a strong statement that could, let's face it, could potentially have led to something.
You never know. You just never know. And I know most people just, not everybody. And Chris, you just said it. From those who are, what was it? Given most is expected.
To whom much is given, much is expected.
Exactly. Yep. So it's not everybody. I don't expect the 12th man on the bench to lead anything.
Right.
I just don't.
Right.
But there are the guys who are bulletproof, who are that good, who could say something. You remember, that was one of the biggest knocks against Michael Jordan when he played. You know that, Chris?
Yep.
is that Mike was a great player but never said anything about issues that he could have. I'm not talking about get on your soapbox and talk about stuff that you're not involved in. There were things that he could have said about NBA-related issues.
Well, I'm guessing you've heard this week too, Rob. A lot of people said to me, and I don't know that this is the right way to look at it, but they've said it to me. At least Jordan, you knew who Jordan was. Like he was like, look, I don't really care about these issues. I'm a basketball player. I'm selling sneakers. Like they're comparing that to players who, again, I don't know if this is the right way to look at it or not, but guys who do speak out on all these issues.
Right.
And they're saying, okay, now we expect you to say something.
And you're not saying anything. Right. Jordan didn't say anything about anything.
Right.
Exactly. David in North Carolina, you're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. Speaking of Jordan, on North Carolina, what's up?
Yeah. Hey, guys, love your show. Thanks for a little airtime.
Thank you.
Just to put it in perspective, the NBA, you got to be consistent. They want to get involved pulling the All-Star game out of Charlotte because the government there passed a law saying when you're in a federal building, you have to use the bathroom that coincides with your birth certificate.
Right.
They pull out. Okay, because their moral conscience and stand on human rights demanded them to pull out. I got a lot of friends that work at the stadiums, at the NASCAR races, at the Hornets games. They depend on that money, parking cars, sweeping floors, selling hot dogs.
They lost out.
The NBA knows they can move. The NBA knows they can move to another city and not lose a dime.
Yep.
But where do they draw the line on their morality? When they're going to lose China's money.
Yes.
And I don't think it's about going over there and playing games. I doubt they make much because of how much it costs to go there with the team and the staff. But when they leave, they're going to sell jerseys. They're going to sell shoes. They're possibly going to get a TV contract. Their morality's for sale.
No doubt about it.
That's a great call.
Discuss it and I'll get on to the thing.
No, David, that was great.
I love that because I hated that the NBA did that.
I've always had a problem with the same thing, NFL taking games, Chris, and going to Europe because the small people get hurt who work the games. You remember Jacksonville had like 2 or 3 games. That means 2 or 3 game days you're not getting paid.
Right.
Those people don't get paid. They didn't go, well, we're going to London, but you're still going to get paid for the day's work. No.
Yep. That's right. There's no the NBA, and that's why that's right. People are calling them on hypocrisy. You took food out of people's mouths, American citizens.
Absolutely.
Just because of your own feelings. Yeah.
Yep.